Trustee Fong, will you please convene the Committee on Educational Policy?
Yes, thank you, Chair Campbell. Will the Committee on Educational Policy please come to order? It is now time for the committee to consider today's consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the March 2021 meeting. Does any committee member wish to remove the item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there an objection to the approval of the consent agenda? The consent agenda is approved. Item 2 of the discussion agenda is an information item regarding post-pandemic academic programs. The item will be presented by Fred E. Wood, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, Dr. Allison Wren, Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs, Innovations, and Faculty Development, and Dr. Sheila Thomas, Assistant Vice Chancellor, Self-Support Strategy and Partnerships, and Dean of Professional and Continuing Education. Dr. Wood, please begin.
Well, thank you, Chair Fong. As you may recall, at the March Board of Trustees meeting, our team presented its annual update on the CSU Academic Master Plan. And in that report, discussed the academic programs that were proposed, suspended, or discontinued by our 23 campuses over the past year. Today, we'd like to begin to take a longer view on how the CSU was able to leverage and build upon existing innovations within academic and student affairs to support our students, our faculty, and our communities amidst a global pandemic, and to discuss what we are doing to anticipate the needs of a post-pandemic world. As I think everyone knows, it was just over a year ago that the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak to be a global pandemic, and the world and the CSU certainly faced unprecedented challenges. No force has been greater than the adversity of the past year, as the global pandemic, its academic fallout, and also racial injustice have spurred all of us to rethink how, who, and what we teach. Approximately 14 months ago, our faculty faced an unprecedented challenge. Nevertheless, with a focus on our students, they persevered, adapted, innovated, and discovered effective new tools and strategies that, in some cases, reinvigorated their love of teaching. We are very, very thankful for their efforts. During this period, our students have been inspirational in their resilience. They have held their dreams in sight and faced untold obstacles to maintain progress toward their degrees and toward the productive and fulfilling careers they've envisioned. Many have embraced the flexibility of online learning as they balance school, work, life, and we hope this increased flexibility will enable even more students to join us in the future and succeed. The Division of Academic and Student Affairs, along with our campus counterparts and Chancellor's Office colleagues, quickly and comprehensively met this moment by prioritizing the following key areas. First, ensuring everyone's safety and sustaining essential student support services. Next, supporting teaching and learning in a virtual environment to advance student success. Third, responding to the greater community's call for social change, and addressing challenging workforce needs. As we now emerge from the pandemic, it is our highest intent to optimize our academic programs to meet the challenging needs of current and future students, to prepare them for the jobs of tomorrow, to equip and inspire a new generation of leaders to advance equity and justice, and to deliver the diverse and talented workforce that will power California's recovery. There are so many aspects of this experience and its impact on the future of direction of teaching, of learning, and overall student experience that we plan to address these topics in 3 parts. First, over the course of today's board meeting, then at next month's deep dive session, and finally at the July board meeting. Today, we will focus on academic programs and how we responded, and will continue to respond to the academic needs of our students and faculty, as well as the future workforce needs of California. Though it is still too early to evaluate system-wide student outcomes, the initial campus reports are positive. For example, recent surveys from San Francisco State found that 63% of the students responded positively to the virtual shift, and 52% reported a preference for online learning this coming fall. Next month, we will take a deep dive look at online learning. We will discuss the foundations that existed before the pivot to virtual education and the lessons learned from a transition that made CSU the largest online university in the nation, the largest. And then finally, during the July board meeting, we will reflect upon the experience of our students during the pandemic and highlight what the past year may foretell about the future needs of our students. So let me now introduce Dr. Allison Wren, Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs and Innovations and Faculty Development, to present an overview of the recent academic innovations. Allison.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. There can be no discussion about the CSU's response to the pandemic without speaking to the exceptional work done by faculty and staff in helping address students' immediate needs. Today, I would like to begin with a focus on our faculty's successful transition to virtual instruction. As many faculty had not taught online before, or some needed assistance translating such activities as lab work to a virtual environment, this pivot required robust support. To illustrate the sheer scope of this effort, consider this. In fall 2019, there were 4,323 fully online sections in the CSU, or approximately 15% of available courses. By March 2020, approximately 74,000 sections, or 98% of courses, had transitioned from face-to-face to remote modalities. More than 60% of our teaching force, some 17,000 faculty, took part in 250,000 hours of professional development. Many courses focused on teaching effectively online, while others covered equity-minded practices. Cal State LA, for example, offered a module on teaching first-generation students who make up more than half of the CSU student body. This module prepares faculty to pinpoint challenges such as hidden curriculum and imposter syndrome, and identify strategies to help support first-generation students. We heard from many faculty who were previously reticent to teach online, who found the experience to be positive. As we look ahead to fall, some campuses are reporting that in early enrollment, some online sections are filling faster than in-person sections. While COVID-19 highlighted disparities in public health over the past year, the murder of George Floyd a year ago this month further illustrated issues of inequity and systemic racism. In addition to supporting their communities in response to this tragedy, campuses also have considered how to transform discussion into action. At the center of many CSU academic programs is the goal to lead positive social change through education. One example is San Diego State's criminal justice program, the university's second most popular major. It studies criminal justice from a social justice perspective, allowing for the thoughtful examination of policy issues as diverse as genocide, institutionalized racism, organized crime, and environmental destruction, in addition to traditional criminal justice issues. Beginning in fall 2021, the program plans to require race relations coursework encompassing how racial bias and discrimination impact the criminal justice system and policing. The pandemic will have a lasting impact on future academic programming across higher education. As described in our annual academic planning presentation to the board in March, CSU campuses address considerations such as student demand and workforce needs when developing new academic programs. Marketplace factors, including innovations in technology and the healthcare crisis, have spurred growth in a number of fields, such as nursing and public health, as well as data science and cybersecurity. As you will hear later in this presentation, CSU Professional and Continuing Education, or PACE, is another way the system responds to workforce needs. Last summer, PACE launched a suite of free online courses in support of first responders, healthcare workers, and working adults. The COVID-19 Courses for Causes addressed a wide range of training and career needs, from Spanish for first responders to crisis leadership. The program is on track to reach 10,000 students by the end of spring. The CSU not only responds to market needs, we anticipate them as well. One example of this is in our teacher preparation programs. The pandemic has placed an even greater burden on California's teachers in a time when students are struggling with potential learning loss. The CSU prepares more than 6,000 teachers every year who are helping to address California's teacher shortage. 45% of all California teachers who earned their teaching credentials in 2019-20 were made in the CSU. But we know there is more work to be done. I would now like to pause and allow you to hear directly from some of the stakeholders we have mentioned today. In this short video, you'll hear from a CSU faculty member who experienced firsthand the pivot to online learning and supported both her students and other faculty in making a successful transition. You will also hear from a CSU employer partner who recognizes that the pandemic is one of the many challenges California still faces, and how he depends on the system to ensure his industry has the capacity and talent to respond.
Last spring, the world seemed to stop. The COVID-19 outbreak had grown to a global pandemic, resulting in more than 150 million cases worldwide. As cases surged in California, the California State University system made a necessary pivot to virtual learning.
I think for some of the STEM and agriculture programs, figuring out how to do labs and hands-on activities was by far the most challenging aspect of switching to virtual as quick as we did in the spring of 2020. Some of the things that I learned over this transition and that we had to go through is understanding, meeting my students where they were at, and especially our first generation students and our underrepresented minorities and students in different regions of the state of California. We were having trouble with consistent Wi-Fi, being able to get online. I've learned that it's got to be a preference. Students need a mix of synchronous and asynchronous classes. Some of the things that I've picked up over the last year of this virtual instruction in the pandemic have been some tools that I think I can truly incorporate that support equity and inclusion, but also simplify the learning process and allow the students not to get hung up on technology, but focus on learning. Looking back on the last year, year and a half, and actually up here at Chico State, it's the last several years, because we've had major fires, we've had the dam almost rupture and flooding. It's been a time of crisis. And I think what I'm most proud of for myself, my colleagues, and our students is resiliency. I am really proud to be a Chico State Wildcat and what we've been able to do for our students through this time.
Responding to and learning from the COVID-19 pandemic is but one way CSU campuses are looking toward the future. Supporting California's economic recovery will create new opportunities for innovation in teaching and learning. While some of these opportunities stem from the pandemic, others will emerge as our CSU communities tackle other persistent challenges. In partnership with communities across the state, CSU campuses are developing the academic programs and innovations to power the state's future economy and deliver a California for all.
So what we're trying to do is build our workforce development, and really the future is here now. Those folks that are in middle school who are thinking about a career in the fire service. We have a vision, and part of that vision includes the CSU system as an integral part of educating our current and future workforce in terms of workforce development, in terms of professional standards, and in terms of the fire service meeting emerging challenges such as climate change and the wildland-urban interface. And the CSU have been an integral partner in collaborating in helping us flesh out the bachelor and master's degree levels of our professional career. And I want to express my gratitude for the Chancellor's Office and those participating campuses that have helped and are helping us achieve this really important workforce development goal.
During the early stages of the pandemic, CSU leadership at the Chancellor's Office and campuses began the conversation of what a post-pandemic world might entail. This discussion continues today as we envision the needs for both a transitional and post-pandemic university. Eliminating equity gaps should inform any discussion on the future of higher education. Increasing our focus on identifying how students learn best and which resources will help them succeed are essential. Demand for online courses is also expected to grow, a topic we will explore in the June board meeting on virtual education. Given responses from national student surveys and survey results from our own CSU campuses, we anticipate the desire for more flexibility in student learning to increase. Many CSU faculty have also shared a deeper appreciation for online learning as a result of their digital experience this past year, both for the flexibility it offers, as well as the digital tools that support more equitable learning. Envisioning what is needed in a post-pandemic world means preparing graduates for jobs critical to the state's economic recovery, including the STEM, healthcare, and education fields. It will also mean addressing increasing student access with more pathways to degrees, as well as expanded opportunities to earn certificates, credentials, and more. Our goal, looking ahead, will be to navigate effectively these changes in our students at whatever age or experience level. I'd now like to ask my colleague, Assistant Vice Chancellor, Self-Support Strategy and Partnerships, and Dean of Professional and Continuing Education, Sheila Thomas, to share some of the initiatives coming out of both our state and self-support areas. Sheila?
Thank you, Allison. While a number of academic programs illustrate the CSU's ongoing response to a changing world, I'd like to take a moment to touch on our work in healthcare. In the written item prepared for you is a case study of ongoing development of our healthcare programs. Pre-pandemic, 1 out of 8 jobs in the state was in healthcare. The sector itself is expected to increase by 79% within the next 20 years. With nearly 400 healthcare profession-related degree programs and concentrations, the CSU is a major contributor to the healthcare workforce in California. And we will continue to be a leader in this industry by being responsive to workforce needs. This can take many forms, including the expansion of concurrent enrollment programs with the California community colleges, exploration of healthcare apprenticeships, implementation of a system-wide medical school pipeline, development of a public health workforce initiative, and participation in vaccination clinics. More details regarding these activities are provided in the written agenda item. The CSU's Professional and Continuing Education, or PACE, also serves California's diverse population, and our students mirror traditional CSU students in many ways, differentiated mostly by age and attendance. PACE conducts market research to identify ways to help working adults, many displaced workers, to upskill, reskill, and re-engage. PACE also identifies ways employers can develop the talent that will drive the state's recovery and diversify the workforce at all levels. The Commission on the Extended University, a system-wide advisory group to the Chancellor, has identified strategic priorities for PACE in responding to the current trends and preparing for the future. I'd like to provide a brief overview of these priorities for you today. As more adult learners seek additional flexibility in their learning, we anticipate more demand for short-term courses and modules. PACE has shifted its emphasis to develop online and blended non-degree and degree programs ranging from a few weeks to less than 1 year. Deliverables include certificates and stackable modules in partnership with employers and workforce partners. PACE is also encouraging ongoing professional development, so faculty and staff can be equipped for the skills and knowledge needed for today and in the future. And through our virtual centers of excellence and shared services, we are helping to expand and leverage shared services models and provide virtual centers by industry sector. Collaboration with our state employers also will be a hallmark of a post-pandemic university. PACE already partners with several essential California industry sectors, including life science and fire service, who have urgent and emerging workforce needs. These industry sectors are seeking our assistance in training their incumbent and future statewide workforce. The Life Sciences Southern California Consortium, for example, is comprised of the Fullerton, Los Angeles, and Long Beach campuses collaborating on a biomanufacturing technician certification for the Biocom Institute. This nonprofit organization accelerates the growth of California's life sciences industry through cutting-edge workforce development and STEM education programs and strategies. Each campus will contribute course content, and the program is scheduled to launch in fall of 2021. As shared earlier, we anticipate a demand for more pathways to degrees and other learning outcomes in the future. Degrees When Due, a degree completion initiative involving the CSU, the UC system, and California community colleges, identifies ways to move students who started but dropped out or stopped out through to degree completion. PACE is also engaging with the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning on professional development training in prior learning assessment and identifying best practices for campus implementation. According to a recent Council on Adult and Experiential Learning, Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education National Survey, students with prior learning assessment can, on average, gain a semester of study. I'd now like to turn the presentation back to Dr. Wood for closing remarks. Dr. Wood?
Thank you, Dr. Thomas and Dr. Rind, for the great presentation. Appreciate all your work. In conclusion, just as we encourage our own students to be active participants in their education, we as a system have embraced lessons from the past year and will leverage them to enhance and innovate our academic programs in the future. Today, we have shared some of the ways the CSU continually expands, refines, and targets learning opportunities for our students to meet the needs of our changing world. As we emerge from the pandemic, our goal is to equip the next generation of leaders with the knowledge and skills to advance equity and justice and lead the diverse and talented workforce of tomorrow. We look forward to sharing other elements of this topic in the upcoming months. So Chair Fong, this concludes our presentation, and we'll be pleased to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you for this very informative presentation. I look forward to the June and July reports. And also thank you to our faculty, our staff, our presidents, the Chancellor's Office for the extraordinary and innovative work and never-ending commitment to our students. Before we invite questions or comments from the board, I would like to ask Dr. Jane Close Connolly, President of California State University, Long Beach, to share with us her unique perspectives as chair of the CSU Commission on the Extended University. President Connolly?
Well, thank you, Trustee Fong. What a delight to be able to speak to you. I think we're at a moment in time, both fueled by the current crisis of the pandemic. We have thousands, if not millions, of Californians who are going to be in need of changing positions or upskilling or reskilling. And we also now have the technology, the proven technology, to get education to the people, to make it so much more accessible than it was before. And I think the initiative, which is one of just many that Dr. Thomas talked about, the credit for prior learning, is a great example of us re-examining some of our long-held beliefs about what it takes to get a degree and really looking at people's life experiences and really moving them forward to their goals. So thanks for inviting me to make that brief comment. I'm very excited about the work.
Thank you very much, President Connolly. And I will now open it up to questions. Trustee Sebelius.
Thank you, Committee Chair Fong. This is the last regular board meeting of my second term as faculty trustee. I strongly hope to get reappointed, but if I don't, I want to use this opportunity to make my possibly last comment as faculty trustee. I truly appreciate the acknowledgement and the tribute that the Chancellor has paid to the faculty, the staff at the Chancellor's office, Chair Campbell, and just now Vice Chair Fong. They truly deserve it. If you ask what is a university, people would traditionally, in a classical way, tell you this is where students take classes. Well, it is a faculty that teaches those classes, and the faculty made it happen. I mean, it was a mind-boggling transformation. I believe most campuses gave faculty 2 to 4 days to completely convert their courses, face-to-face courses, to online courses. Some of our regular teaching load is 4 units. Some of our lecturers teach, 4 classes, sorry. Some of our lecturers teach 5 classes. Imagine that. Imagine what it took us to learn how to use a Zoom meeting. Now, can you imagine to convert an entire course, 15-week course, onto online course? The faculty made it happen. We pulled it off. We brought the students to completion. We graduated students to a record amount in CSU history. And furthermore, then in the summer, the faculty participated in faculty development to better equip themselves with technology, to become more competent. Because it's not the same to just take a face-to-face course and to put it online. That is very different from a true online class that is designed to be online from the very beginning with a very different pedagogy. There was overtime on part of the faculty, uncompensated workload, stress, and burnout. But the total pivot to online proves that the faculty is ready and able to do just about anything. The COVID urgency didn't allow administrators to engage in a lot of consultation, and the change had to be quick, and the change was quick. But as we plan to mindfully and collaboratively position the CSU for the post-COVID times, for the next decade and beyond, I call on the Chancellor and on the campus president and on the campus administrators to consult with the faculty, to respect their and to move us forward. And I truly hope to see you and to collaborate with you for another 2 years and to help to position the CSU for the future. But I don't want to let this opportunity to go by to pay tribute and acknowledge this incredible work of the faculty.
Thank you, Trustee Sebelius. Trustee Carney.
Thank you, Trustee Fong. I just want to join with you and Trustee Sebelius in recognizing the enormously good work that was done throughout the CSU to adjust to the pandemic realities and to make education continue. And then this report, which is just so full of great analysis and thought about what we can learn and what we can use going forward. It really is just a tremendously good report. So with that, I want to apologize for focusing in on one really small point, but I would like to ask Dr. Thomas if she could please give an example of a center of excellence and high quality shared services.
Yes, thank you for that question, Trustee Carney. So we look at these really grouped around our industry sectors. So we have fire service, we have life sciences, and then we have a smaller effort in cybersecurity. So these are really campus collaborations, campuses coming together and sharing resources. We have an example of one campus that is doing a lot with badging. So we look at them perhaps as a center of excellence or as a service provider to other campuses to provide that service. So we're not duplicating efforts across 23, but we're actually sharing in a very effective way resources across campuses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Trustee Arambula.
So much of what Trustee Carney resonates. I'm so thankful for the work that went into this report, to the presentation today. And I have two very tiny questions to check on. During the presentation today, it was mentioned that in early enrollment, some online courses were actually filling faster than in-person courses. Did I hear that correctly? I just wanted to confirm that.
You did. And this would be continuing students making those kinds of choices.
And have we heard anecdotally or been checking in with students what's driving that decision?
And perhaps the two student trustees could help with this, but I believe a lot of it is flexibility in work schedules, flexibility in family care issues, flexibility in commuting. That's a big one we heard over the past year, is the commuting story. So I think it's a combination of factors that we're seeing.
Thank you. It's really exciting. And my assumption from the beginning has been this will lead to more equity, more access, which are all positive things. I'm just excited to see the more we can learn. And I see that two of our student trustees have jumped in. One last question from me. I saw mention of credit for prior learning and have heard of this before. Is this happening at each individual? Who is making the decision about how and when we're providing credit for prior learning? Is that happening across all 23, or is that unique at each campus?
If I may, I'll provide an introduction and then ask Sheila to step in with more details since it crosses both of our areas. We have a longstanding policy on credit for prior learning in the system, and we've been working very closely with our community college partners as well as our Veterans Affairs staff to update it, to make it more reality-based for the 21st century. So there are some things that are very centralized in terms of the policy, but there are other pieces that there is some campus-based flexibility. So Sheila, did I miss anything on that?
No, I would just add that that we are looking, especially working with our CALE partner, to really establish some best practices, some implementation assistance, some training, so we can implement as smoothly as possible across all campuses, realizing that there's going to be 23 different ways this is going to be done. But we do want to provide some best practices and some guidelines that will help campuses implement this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Adamson.
Thank you. Allison, quickly, some of us wear different hats. I happen to wear a hat in the healthcare industry, and coming out of their associations across the nation is a huge cry for what they perceive to be a major both exodus out of the nursing industry, as well as a huge need just to keep up with healthcare needs of the future. As we talk about preparing for the future, and as we talk about some specific industries, what are we looking at the CSU to increase our capacity and our ability to meet nursing needs in California?
Thank you for that question, Trustee Adamson. You're right. Following the pandemic, there is going to be a greater interest in healthcare as a career, but also we're going to lose a lot of folks probably. We work very closely with our community college partners on expanding access because, as you know, in nursing, there's limitations on the size of our programs based on the clinical practice sites that we can access, that the community colleges can access. For example, and I believe this is in the written item, we have a pathway program that we developed about 2 years ago with Riverside Community College, where we provide access to both CSU San Bernardino and CSU Fullerton for those students. And the students from Riverside Community College are able to access CSU level financial aid from the beginning of their participation in that pathway. And that model is being replicated on some of our other campuses. So we're continuing to work with the Board of Registered Nursing. During the pandemic, as you might have heard, we were able to do more simulation learning for clinical practice than previously, and we're hopeful that that will continue following the pandemic. So we're watching these trends closely, and we're going to continue to work with our community college partners on these opportunities.
Thank you. I just hope that we are very aggressive in this particular field as we move forward, and that we work very hard to try to see if we can't be that partner to fill that need.
Thank you. Trustee Kames.
Thank you. So just to quickly, address what Trustee Arambula asked, I think virtual instruction or just taking classes virtually is very attractive to a lot of students, or at least a certain percentage of students, really because of the commuting aspect of it. For example, I used to drive about 30 minutes till I get to campus. Sometimes I would have classes in the morning and classes in the afternoon. So I would pretty much be on campus about 10 hours, right? During the times where I'm exhausted, I pretty much, have free time. I obviously can't go back home because gas prices are so high. So I would pretty much go and camp out in the library and just do whatever I need to do until my next class, right? So obviously that was an inconvenience. I would say the other part has really been flexibility. For example, since everything has unfolded and we've gone virtually, I've been able to pretty much at one point work 3 jobs at a time in addition to being a student trustee, right? That has helped me not stay broke, at least for a couple of months. So I guess the idea, at least the way that I see it and from the conversations that I've heard, virtual is awesome. I've encouraged so many students to pretty much make public comments at Board of Trustees meetings, for example, something that if you were in Humboldt, you would never be able to do as a student because you can't drive all the way down to Long Beach and do that. Crystal and I have been able to visit almost 20 campuses virtually this year and present on the Board of Trustees and some of the work that we do, right? So for me, it's been really just increasing that education, increasing accessibility and empowering people with knowledge. But I also say that, nothing really fits, or not one thing fits everyone. Every student is obviously different. For example, I am really ready to go back to in-person instruction. I am just really over being in my bedroom, learning on my own. And it's been really tough on my mental health. It's been really tough, like connecting with other people. So I would definitely say that this is an incredible thing to go into, right? But again, I think this is something that, a lot of our students would benefit from, but a lot of us are also really looking back to just going back to class. I know that sounds insane to someone who never wanted to wake up early and go to class, but I'm just ready.
Thank you for your insight, Trustee Kames. Chair Campbell.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a question to both Vice Chancellor, Assistant Vice Chancellor Thomas and Allison. I spoke a few weeks ago with Vice Chancellor Thomas about paid internships and apprenticeships and whether we have many of them to support our students and also give the experience that industry, particularly in tech, is always complaining about and asking for. And it was interesting. I know that, for instance, in Germany, there's a culture of paid apprenticeships, so paid by the industry themselves. And I think, Vice Chancellor Thomas, you told me that is just something that we don't have much of here at the CSU. And I'm wondering if that's something either you or Allison could address, something that we could be exploring, partnering with industry, where they will take some of the responsibility and bear the cost of training those people who they so desperately need and often complain they cannot find here and are going, we have people coming from other countries to fill those positions. I know, particularly, say, in Silicon Valley.
Yes, thank you for that question, Trustee Campbell. And we did have a very nice conversation. I enjoyed that. So the apprenticeships, so we actually do have one registered apprenticeship in the CSU, and that's with it's a workforce academy designed for staff who work at workforce boards. And this was created in partnership with the California Workforce Association. And it was also funded through a grant from our Commission on Extended University. It's a 3-campus collaboration, and it's been running about 5 years between Sac State, Cal State LA, and Cal State Long Beach. And between those 3 campuses, we've had to date over 100 graduates of the program. So these are partnerships with the local workforce boards. So the campus provides the education piece, the workforce board provides the employer on the job training piece, and the employee is paid and then quite often receives some sort of a promotion as a result of taking this program. So we do have an example of a working apprenticeship. I think cybersecurity is the other area where this has a lot of potential. We are also tracking very closely the governor's task force on cybersecurity. There's a lot of CSU faculty involved in the workforce and educational subcommittee, looking at ways that we might expand that in that particular area, which I think has a lot of potential. So a great question and something that we are tracking.
That's great, but it's 100 grads in 5 years, that's 20 grads a year, considering we have almost 500,000 students. I'm just wondering if we could do a better job of somehow, I know that just hasn't been the culture in the state universities, to, involve industry more and in partnership. And if they're going to want the students trained the way they need them, that they can be part of that and, support us and support the students.
Trustee Campbell, could I just add just quickly, we are working in public health to build some paid internships, and you raise a great point. Paid internships is an equity issue. Students who can afford not to get paid for their internship are a different student than those who need to get paid. So this, I believe on our campuses, and some of our presidents could probably address this better, we do have a culture of looking for more paid internships, but this is something that we do need to focus on and ask our industry partners to support us on. So thank you for bringing it up.
Gloria, I think we should get a catalog of what the apprenticeships are going on now. I know there's a group of us funding about 150 apprenticeships out of the School of Public Affairs at San Diego State. Then there's another program called Troops to Engineers, veterans who are getting engineering internships and eventually jobs in the defense sector. I think San Marcos State has got a program with Viasat, where Viasat's paying for internships, and then most of these kids end up getting jobs at the companies that they get apprenticeships at. So it's a really great way to establish a career. But I think a lot of this is going on now, but it's probably decentralized, and it'd be good to do an inventory of what everybody's doing to get best practices.
Exactly. Yes. If we could do that, it would be very helpful. I would really be interested in seeing something if we could get some numbers.
We'll work to put something together for you, Chair Campbell.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Trustee Reynos.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you so much to everybody that has worked on this report and just really analyzing the effects of so many good things that has come out of this pandemic. So I also wanted to give some insight on the other side of the aisle. I really enjoy virtual classes personally, and for many reasons, but I know commonly cited reasons that we all know that when the pandemic hit, a lot of our students left the dorms, a lot of our students moved back home. And so now students are finding it cheaper to live with their parents or live back home. We have students here that come back to Bakersfield or Central Valley that it's just cheaper to live here than the Bay Area or down south. Also, students that are parents, they can save on childcare while they can watch their child while they're in virtual classes, as well as asynchronous classes have really shown so much flexibility. And because for my learning processes personally, and I know other students that learn a little bit slower, we are able to pause and rewind and just have the videos readily available, which is such a big help, especially when it comes to physics too. So that definitely has helped. I did have 2 questions for virtual programming going forward with GI 2025. I was wondering if we're looking into continuing, when we shifted our mental health counseling virtually. And I was wondering if we are looking into continuing those programs or having it as a supplemental program for our students in ways of accessibility, as well as secondly, are we looking into non-traditional hours for our tutoring centers, especially for our parents? I know that I've had many students on my campus come to me saying that they're not able to go to tutoring centers, but our Writing Resource Center on campus has given 5 to 8 p.m. Sessions for basically our student parents. And so I was wondering if virtual tutoring later hours are being looked into, as well as the virtual mental health counseling sessions.
Thank you for those comments on your question. I believe AVC Hong is on the call, and I think she would be able to speak better to the mental health hours and whether that will remain virtual. Lolo, are you here? If not?
Yeah, no, I am. Sorry.
There you go.
Let me get to my unmute. So yeah, we're getting this question quite a bit. So mental health services and a number of other front-facing student services made the pivot along with instruction. As we're looking to repopulation in the fall, we have developed and acquired some online technologies that we think are worth maintaining. So for example, we struggled to get a HIPAA compliant version of Zoom to be able to serve students. Just like with the instructional flexibility that both of our student trustees were talking about the benefits, we see flexibility with remaining and sustaining hybrid modes of access for a number of our student services, including mental health. So I think in working with our counselor faculty, we believe that there will continue to be the option to access some services via the remote and virtual modality. How much it will be will probably vary from campus to campus. And this is where we encourage our students to work with their campus associated students, because that's where the feedback we hope can be provided through the student leadership voices to our counseling and psychological services. But from what I am seeing, the trend is that we will take what we learned and see the benefits and leverage that going forward.
Thank you very much.
And then in regards to the non-traditional tutoring hours, sorry.
Sorry about that. So there's a whole host of services. So learning support, tutoring, career development, right? There's a whole range of services that I think moving to the online environment allowed for our departments to see the opportunities that were afforded for students, but also for their staffing, right? And so I think there's now an appetite for folks to work more flexible work hours, which then also means the availability to provide more flexible service hours for our students. So I really do see that this is a win-win. And again, the technologies will allow for students to access programs and services across the board. And the other positive trend we're seeing is that there are a number of student engagement activities that students can now access at other CSUs, right? So I think someone was saying that now a student from Humboldt can provide testimony during public comment, which that would have been difficult to do. But we're seeing now that campuses can collaborate with each other now. And so one campus may host a speaker, a big name speaker, but invite students from other CSUs to be able to participate because of the virtual remote format. So yes, I do think we will see the continuation across all of our student services where appropriate to have the virtual remote format.
Very, very exciting news. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trustee Fagan.
Two questions. One, on past learning, is that, how successful is that? And is it limited to past formal education, or does it include life experiences? And is this really targeted at older students, and what's the success rate, and what effect is it having on people's lives? That's the first one. The second one, maybe we want to get into more at the deep dive in June, but the question is, with all the sort of surprise and gratification about the success of online education and the acceptance, do you see this as showing that maybe scaling up the size of classes is now a more interesting idea on an online platform for those kinds of students at the point in their academic careers who would benefit from that? Is that something you're looking at, or would you look at it? Is that something that could work and benefit the CSU?
I'll start with the first question, Trustee Fagan, on the scaling of class sizes, and then ask Sheila to chime in on the question about prior learning. We have to be cautious when we talk about online learning, and we can speak more about this in June. We still have classes of certain sizes for pedagogical reasons, but there are things we could do, such as, could you have a large lecture online and then have smaller discussion sections that maybe we previously hadn't been able to do? So I think there are opportunities out there.
Okay. And then maybe we can talk about that a little more in June. And then the question about life experience.
Yes, so credit for prior learning really encompasses recognizing the learning that's acquired in any setting. So it could be at another institution to transfer credit. It could be someone who has a certification or has earned, a professional industry certification, and it could be someone who has, many years of work experience in a certain field, and they would like to have that learning recognized. So it really falls into those sort of buckets. And we have certain ways that it can be assessed. It could be an examination. It could be a portfolio assessment. We also have the American Council on Education has a directory with faculty approved coursework from some of these very robust industry sectors, and all of that could be evaluated by the individual campus regarding the student's educational plan and whether credit can be awarded for them as usually an equivalency for a course. So in a recent 72 institution study that was done by the Council on Experiential Learning and WICHE, it showed that this is a very highly effective practice. It can improve access, equity, and close achievement gaps. Typically, students can earn anywhere between 12 and 15 units on average. However, it is fairly underutilized. So that's our reason for revising our policy and bringing it more into the current environment and workplace, so we can encourage more, particularly adult learners, to look at this as a way for them to proceed into their educational program.
Do you have an effort to publicize it, to get the word out?
Yes, we're finalizing the revision of our system-wide policy, and we actually just held two system-wide workshops, one on just what is credit for prior learning, and the second one was on the actual policy itself. And then, of course, marketing this to our students will come next as campuses are able to put this in their marketing materials and let students know that this is available to them.
I just, one last comment. My late wife was an academic, and her college was very much into enabling people that have life experience credit. And for a lot of older people, going back to school and getting that credit made all the difference and changed their lives. And it was very impressive. So I applaud your efforts and go to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Steinhauser.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fong. I have 3 comments. One, first to the staff, thank you for this excellent presentation, and to my colleagues for this discussion. This is really important because COVID brought a lot of bad things to our nation, to the world, but it also has brought the opportunity to do a lot of good things. And so this is an example of what I think is one of those positives. And Chair Kimball, I want to thank you for your comment on internships and apprenticeships, because there are thousands of K-12 students right now that are involved in these internships through many, many years of work with the James Irvine Foundation and others. And both Governor Brown and Governor Newsom have been very supportive of career tech education. And I think this is a great opportunity for our system, as well as the community colleges, to work with K-12s and aligning the resources of the career tech ed program to provide apprenticeships and internships, especially in fields like fire science and other industry pathways. So I think we've just scratched the surface because there was a lot going on. And I'm going to make probably a controversial comment now, so I'm going to give that up front. If we're truly going to close equity gaps for our system and for our young people, as we identify best practices down the road, in my opinion, I really hope that this board really looks at saying that certain things are non-negotiable on all 23 campuses, because it shouldn't be that I go to San Diego State and have one experience and Chico State another. It's about opportunities. And so whatever we come up with a best practice, in my opinion, if we're really going to be about a system to close the equity gaps for our young people, we really need to say, this is one of those areas of non-negotiableness that we have to do. So that's just one trustee's opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Steinhauser. Trustee Furstenberg.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a wonderful idea to look at the entire system and I think about internships. And I think once we do that, we're going to see that there are many, many different programs available. I was so impressed when I learned about the Entertainment Alliance, which is supported by the Chancellor's Office, came out of San Francisco State. Dr. Dina Ibrahim has done a magnificent job. And every summer, there are internships available in the entertainment community for students from all over the system. So I applaud this suggestion that we really find out and document all the things that we're doing across all the campuses.
Thank you, Trustee Furstenberg. Also in the report, it mentions that as of May 2021, 14 of our 23 California State University campuses are serving as COVID-19 vaccine distribution sites, and that it says that more are expected to join in the near future. And I was wondering, what is the status of the 9 remaining campuses? Because I know that we would like to see, all of our campuses have vaccination sites so that we can continue to help our communities. Is there any update to that?
Well, we couldn't agree more with you, Trustee Fong. We think it's critically important. The Chancellor, I know, has spent enormous amount of time convincing various offices to have sites on all of our campuses. And Chancellor, I don't know if you want to give any update on all the efforts that you've been doing. I know that's a lengthy list.
Sure. What I could say as of today, each of our campuses has some kind of a partnership with the county or with Rite Aid or CVS so that we have access to vaccinations. And So I feel confident based on that we're going to be able to get our folks vaccinated. We've also been working with the governor's office on a marketing campaign that would include all of higher education and getting the message out that we want our students in particular to be vaccinated in a timely way.
Thank you, Chancellor Castro, and thank you so much, Drs. Wood, Hong, Thomas, and Rin for that incredible report. Chair Campbell, that concludes the work of the Committee on Educational Policy.
I see Mariana still has her hand up. Is that
Mariana? Excuse me.
That's okay. I just wanted to quickly ask if there is, I'm not sure how the data collection period is, and I know we've been only doing virtual instruction for maybe 2 years. In terms of just student success, right, just kind of putting access aside, do we have any data saying that anything has changed, or even if, student success and when it comes to numbers has increased? I'm not sure if it's, if you need to study for like 5 years of just doing one model and seeing the successes that came from it.
That's a great question, and we've been asked that before. I think you're right that we have to take some time to look at the data and see how we're doing. Obviously, we had a record number of graduates last year, which was very exciting. As you and Crystal are probably aware, we did modify some of our grading practices and allowed for more credit, no credit grading. And so that makes the comparison a little bit different. So that's a good question. And certainly that's something in our list of things to analyze as we move forward over the next semester or two.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think that's definitely something that, would be super helpful to see when we're making decisions that involve, converting some sort of, or just having virtual and in person. So thank you so much.
All right.
I'll just piggyback on that as well. Sorry, Trustee Fong. Trustee Kings, I think another area that is a little bit more focused that we want to make sure we assess and track student successes. As many of you know, we have temporarily suspended the use of standardized test scores in determining our admissions criteria. So this is in a way a serendipitous opportunity that has been presented to the CSU, that while we continue to discuss the future, whether there's a future for standardized testing for CSU admissions, that we're sort of in the middle of an experiment, if you will. So that'll be another area that we'll be tracking, is to see how our students who've been admitted under this temporary admissions criteria model will do in terms of their first and second year retention. So we'll be tracking that as well. It's another impact of the pandemic, but another way to think about student success that we want to track.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Again, Drs. Wood, Hong, Thomas, and Rin for that excellent report and for your comments. Chair Campbell, that concludes the Committee on Educational Policy.
Thank you, Trustee Fong. And that concludes the board's business for today. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you.